So today's Which Word of the Day is light worker. Noun. A light worker is any person who helps others and the planet. If an individual believes in service and supporting those in need, it's a clear sign that they're bringing light into this world and filling it up with positive energy. Many spiritual communities believe that light consists of high vibrations like love, gratitude, and joy, and then these unique and special forms of energy help lift the vibrations of the planet so it's not bogged down with low vibrations like selfishness, fear, and anger. It is someone who wholeheartedly makes the decision to make the world a brighter place by them being in it. But a light worker is not all about light and love. Quite the contrary, because light is not possible without journeying into the depths and facing the shadow. They know that being a light worker involves continually facing their shadow in order to transmute their wounds into gifts. And proper light work is not possible without doing so. So this is what it means to work your light, girl, which light workers are committed to doing.
Okay.
I feel like there's another word for that. When you said taking care of the planet and all, I instantly thought Captain Planet.
Yep.
He's a hero. The Planeteers.
Yeah. I think Planeteers are light workers. They're one and the same.
Wow.
By our powers combined.
Yes. And they also have powers. So.
Yeah.
You haven't even read that?
Wait, what are you doing with the book?
So he has the confidence to finish the story.
Hear now the words of the witches.
Can you hear the words of the witches? Yeah, the words of the witches.
Welcome to Words of the Witches, the Charmed podcast that will guide you through the lesser-known published lore of the Charmed universe.
In this night and in this hour, we call upon our fanboy power, bringing education and stupefaction to all of you.
Together, we will use our knowledge and reverence abundantly, but also find ourselves sassy and delightful.
Which is why we will truly be charmed.
All right, spell worders, hello. This is Words of the Witches, episode 143. I am Kevin, your resident Charmed resource.
And I am Sean. I am an ex-planeteer.
Oh. And we have someone with us.
Hi, I am Michael. I go by Black Gay Comic Geek on the internet, and I review movies, TV shows, comic books, horror movies, all of that stuff from a Black queer perspective. I always say the things I love to talk about on my channel has blood, sex, gore, and magic, or any variation of the four. So that's what I like to talk about.
And you also show up in the pre-movie stuff at AMC
Yeah, that was it was just for
Month.
Pride Month. It was just for Pride
Yep.
Month, but yeah.
I was like, I know that guy.
Yeah, you're so cool. We've talked for a long time. Back in those cosplay days. I remember. Yeah.
We have, and I tried to meet you in person because I know you live in Wisconsin. But back when I was a flight attendant, and I had layover there, but didn't work out.
You know.
And now I'm not a flight attendant anymore.
I know. Yeah. Now you do much more cooler things and nerdy things.
Yes. Talk nerdy to me.
Yes. Ooh. Oh. So, do you remember we had you on this show before? Do you remember the last time you were here?
Yeah, I was talking about. I don't remember which comic it was, but it was one of the Charm comics.
Yeah. It was season 9, issue 22. Who you gonna call?
Yes.
That was a good one. A good Prue and Cole one with Rennick.
It was fun. Rest in peace, Shannon Doherty.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And Michelle Trachtenberg.
And Michelle Trachtenberg.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, staples of childhood, staples of, media. And neither of them were showcased in the Oscars.
In the Oscars, yeah. Same with Tony Todd. They left out Tony Todd, too. Candyman.
Yeah. Who, he was also in Charmed, actually.
Yes.
He played an Avatar in season 5 of Charmed.
I'm trying to... He was an Avatar?
Yes, in season 5, not season 7, season 5.
Okay.
So he was one of the 2 original avatars that came to Cole. Yeah.
I'm going to have to go back and watch that. I don't remember.
There you go. I'll send you a picture. I'll send you a screen. Sean, we had a poll last week. What was our poll?
Oh shit. I don't remember.
It was Is Charmed a Feminist Show? Do you consider Charmed a feminist show?
Oh, yeah. I said yes.
We all said yes. What do you think, Michael?
I would say, yeah, just by default of the fact that it's a show starring women about women issues, like them getting married, having children. The fact that, you know, unlike a lot of shows at the time, especially fantasy shows, a lot of fantasy shows, they focus on them getting and discovering their powers as like teenagers.
Yeah.
Whereas
right.
Charmed, these were grown adult women having to get jobs and pay bills and pay rent and then still date and all of that stuff, go through marriage, like all of that. And that's something that was very different for television especially for a supernatural show, and something that you, for the most part, still don't really see to this day. Like a lot of fantasy is always like the kid YA. They get their powers when they're young, not when they're basically adults.
I always found that adult part very fascinating and refreshing, and I think that's part of why I was drawn to it too. Even as a kid, I'm like, I've never seen it like them. It's like Friends with Magic.
Yeah, I was like, these are grown women, and they're like having to navigate the supernatural world while also pay rent and look for jobs.
Yeah, I feel like the majority said yes because it just makes sense. But I think people might have said no because maybe their idea of feminism is different than what is typical or what it really is. I think they're probably looking for something that's more preachy or like specifically states feminist, or or because there are those misogynistic things that hide in there. Brad Kern, thanks. But overall, I do agree that it is a feminist show.
Yeah, there wasn't really a whole lot of like I was discriminated against because I'm a woman, or I got to do this, or like somebody gave a pass at me or whatever because I was a woman, or dealing with like those type of issues. There was none of that in the show, but in just this inherent nature of existing, like that to me, granted, I'm a man, like who?
Yeah. But it's natural living, which I think is more important than them being like, hey, guess what? I'm a woman. I'm going to go against the patriarchy now. I think it loses some of that impact when it's like forced like that.
And also, last thing I'll say, there was a whole episode. What is it, Blue Moon Rising or Once in a Blue Moon, whatever?
Oh, God.
There's a whole episode about them getting their period at the same time and turning into werewolves. Like, if that's not feminism, what is?
Brad Kern wrote that because he's like, the actresses are on their period at the same time right now. I'm going to write an episode about their period. It was terrible. Well, he didn't write it, but he's put that in the...
It's his idea.
Okay. Yeah. So Instagram, 173 people said yes, 81%, and 41 people said no, 19%. On YouTube, 76% said yes, and 24% said no. So there are some naysayers, but majority agree.
And I'd be curious, are the naysayers men or women? I want to know their side of it.
Yeah, I mean, there was a mix. And some people that I respect, like Jaleesa was one of them that said no. They should have wrote in and explained themselves.
Yeah, explain yourself.
Next, we have manor keeping.
You can't just vanquish an entire house, especially not our house. People are gonna notice.
Manor keeping.
Well, the problem isn't the manner. It's the manner in which it was treated.
A good witch is a clean witch.
I have one thing from last week. It was something that Kat Zakard did, our guest. She kept saying Spencer Riggs, Riggs, when it should have been Spencer Ricks. She kept saying Riggs because of Bobby Riggs was the thing, and I didn't correct her because I'm like, just go with it, girl, it's fine. But I just wanted to correct that now.
Okay.
And you have a little manner keeping thing from work, don't you, Sean?
Yeah, just a fun little thing. I sent it to Kevin right away. The other day I was helping somebody with the patient, and the patient's name was Melinda Warren. I was like, oh, I know that name.
Oh, wow.
It's like, how fun.
Yeah.
It would have been nice if they did like a Melinda Warren like prequel.
Yeah. I mean, they could have done a whole show just about the ancestors, every generation of the Hollow Witches, and each episode would have been a different. Oh my gosh, that would have been so cool.
Granted, I wanted to spin off with the kid like Wyatt and Chris, and in my head canon, Wyatt is gay. So
Yeah.
and he
Yep.
he
Yeah.
ends up but he does follow his mother's footsteps and marries a male white lighter.
I would watch that porn.
Yeah.
Orbing all over the room.
Of course. Lots of orbs all over the house.
Yep.
Yeah, we could do a whole discussion on that. Wyatt being gay in my head canon.
I like that. I like it. I would have loved to see. I mean, it would have been Wyatt, Chris, and Melinda, or even like the cousins. Like, what if it was like the 3 oldest children of all of the sisters? So it would have been Wyatt, PJ, and then Paige's twins, and then all the other siblings feeling gypped because they're just, not the oldest. And then the power of 3 with the Shermans would be cousins, just like the 20s. It would be pretty cool.
I like that.
Agreed, especially because in the comic they took away the whole destiny thing.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Blah.
Bleh.
Which, yeah, I thought was stupid, but whatever, it is what it is.
It was stupid. It was stupid. No. So we're going to continue. Finish Investigating Charmed, The Magic Power of TV, published January 15th, 2008. This section is part 3, Visual Power, Place, and Genre. Michael will tell you what happened, and then you can react to them and see what your thoughts are. So I'll go with the first one. It is called There Is Nothing New in the Underworld, Narrative Recurrence and Visual Leitmotifs in Charmed by Stan Bieler. This is Karen Bieler's husband, one of the 2-pair editing team of this book. And you saw these essays, Michael, Black Gay Comic Geek, and they're very long and they're very wordy. They're very academic.
Yeah.
So this one, it notes that in art, audiences like the infinite variations that can arise within familiar themes. So in Charm's case, they say that its basic plot structure and constants like Halliwell Manor give us that familiarity, and then you mix that with the differing possibilities of how things could go down because it's magic. That's what keeps us coming back. We like the possibilities of crazy mixed with our like, oh yeah, I know that. There's character and power, and here it was interesting to me that he says Phoebe in many ways retained her plot function of being the most immature and irresponsible one, even when Paige came, and Paige seemed to mediate situations more often because she was more on it and smart and thinking. Which I think there's some validity in that. I think because Phoebe, she tried to be the middle sister for a while, but then slunk back into what made her more comfortable.
Yeah.
Yes, but also no. Because there were plenty of moments where like Paige and Piper would butt, especially in season 4, they were butting heads a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Phoebe would be the mediator.
Yeah. And a lot of that too is, I think, because Paige is very much like Prue. She is the closest to Prue. So with those butting head moments, Paige is pretty much like, she has traits of all 3 sisters. It's really interesting, her character.
Agreed. And even when Phoebe got her empath, which I hated that they took that away. Like, that was so stupid. But like, even moments of that, like, because I'm thinking, I'm like, no, she was still mediating a lot. Like, more so, like when Piper was going through her stuff with Leo going to be an elder, and her trying to date, and her reading her mind and all this other stuff, and then reading Paige.
She is very emotional, and she has kind of like a sixth sense about, the energies of the world, and she's always had that. Even before the empathy power, she's always been.
Once she got her empathy power, like, she went from the weakest sister to the most powerful, technically.
When we did our power plays, we saw how many things she can do with that empathy power. What that means. Ugh. So the rest of this essay, there's a plot and structure section. He pretty much broke down how TV episodes work. He's like, there's A and B plots, and they have 4 commercial breaks, and TV evolved from into longer story arcs instead of the single episode problems. So he's like, yeah, TV's changing. Crazy. Charm changed with TV. Okay, and then here he goes with the sisters. So he says, Phoebe's character's motifs centered around love and feelings. Piper's is home and family. And when Piper dates guys, it's always for the long term. She always intends for it to be for the long term. Prue was the most social conscious and always the one to sacrifice her own well-being for others. Yes. And he says that Paige ended up being more mature than Phoebe because she has more social concern and highly moral character, actually making her most similar to Prue. He says men in Charmed, Leo, Cole, and Daryl have relatively minor significance, and sole purpose is to further develop the girls. The men are definitely supportive characters in it, and there are instances that merit them being like background characters, but I always recognize these guys as like fully realized characters with heartaches, desire, and traumas, and I clearly understood who they were, and I was interested in them outside of their relationship with the girls, so I don't agree with that.
I think based on what I got from it, I think they were just basically saying that the men of the show aren't the ones really driving the narrative. They're there to push the sister story ultimately. Unlike, going back to the idea of feminism, unlike a lot of shows where it's mostly, straight white men that are the leads, that are the ones that are telling the narrative. Whereas this, it's like, no, the men are there. Yeah, they're fully realized characters like a Leo, a Cole, Andy, etc. With the exception of Daryl. They didn't really do anything with Daryl. But like through them, it pushed the sister storyline forward, like, Prue's idea of, coming to terms with letting Andy know that she's a witch and letting go a little bit of control, or the forbidden love between Piper and Leo, same kind of with Phoebe and Cole, with the whole demonic element, etc. But I also found it interesting that it says something about like the men of the story can't handle the supernatural elements or something like that, but they left out Wyatt and Chris.
Yeah.
So like throughout the show, even with like Grams, they would constantly talk about, like men can't handle power. Men, like when she first found out that Piper was pregnant with a man, she's like, absolutely not. He's gonna go whatever. Like this man in 300 years, we never had a man as a baby. Like what is going? Something went wrong. And then Wyatt came up, and Chris came about, and they are the legacy of part of the Charmed legacy. And granted, we had this whole storyline of Wyatt going evil, but it wasn't because he was a man. It was because he was trapped in the underworld. But it was like the first time you saw like men getting the power, so to speak. So I found it interesting that they actually left them out.
I know.
Yeah. They do that a lot in this book. They leave out key things to make their point.
Exactly. This doesn't fit with my point, so goodbye. I pretend that part doesn't exist. But yeah, there are definitely supportive characters, and they are there in the service of the girls overall. But yeah, I think they are important. And this is another thing too. He brought up this girl named Jane Furr, and she thinks that character development in serialized drama is non-existent, and that characters continually make the same mistakes. I mean, they do sometimes not learn their lessons, and they do sometimes go in circles, but there's definitely character development.
But that's people in general, right? Like, how many times do we make the same mistakes over and over again? I'm never going to do that again. Or I'm never going to fall for a guy like that. And then the next, and it's like, God damn it. I did it again.
Got me again.
Or as gay people, I would never again fall for a straight guy. And then you find out the guy's straight. You're like, God damn it. Like, so that's natural.
See?
Like, people do that all the time.
It's real life, Jane.
Yeah, Jane.
It says establishing shots of San Francisco are visual leitmotifs that reinforce the plot. Sure.
Sure. Weird. That's also like you want to establish continuity in your show. If it takes place in San Francisco, I want to fucking see San Francisco. Like,
yeah,
right.
Yeah,
not some random house off the LA freeway. Who would do that?
Yeah.
Like, we gotta tell people where we are. The attic is the heart of their mystic power, even though the plot shows that it may actually be in the basement with the Nexus.
True, but I also feel like in the beginning, they made it seem like the Book of Shadows was the power. That was the thing that everybody coveted. But then when you got to like Zanku, it was like, nah, screw the book. It's really about the Nexus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hallowell Manor was a mix of history and American culture. And this made me laugh. They said when the manor is an establishing shot, whenever we open on the manor, it tells us that the episode will focus on the sisters' lives as women. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's the entire show.
Yeah, that's every episode.
And then he talked about Something Wicked This Way Comes the first episode, how it opens with the Golden Gate Bridge. But it's not just the Golden Gate Bridge. It's moody. It's witchy now. And it started with, who killed the witch? a question that will inevitably be solved by the end of the episode. Character beats are established and more hit music plays. Blah, 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 blah. Pretty much, he just breaks down the first episode and now analyzes it based on TV structure. It's like something that you might see in like film studies or script writing class. To me, it was very formulaic and almost condescending. So it kind of really took the heart out of the episode for me. So I didn't really care for it. But he did conclude by praising Charmed for the way it handled and represented everything. And he considers it as a success. So, yay. And that's the essay.
People are still talking about it to this day, virtually 20-something years later. So,
yeah. So, any other thoughts?
I took no notes on this one. I was bored. It was all just like no duh information. Like, shows are repetitive. Yeah, that's what a show is. Like, yeah.
Even that, like, it opened, like, the title of the chat said nothing new in the underworld, and so then it went on to talk about it almost sounded like a complaint, like it being repetitive, and I'm like, you literally just said there's nothing new in the underworld. Like, all stories have been done before. There's nothing that you can tell that's truly original. Because it started talking about Baroque and how Baroque used from it. I was like, how did we even get here? But like, it's like modern audience. True art is all original, and it's like, true art is all original. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, again, there's nothing new. All stories have been told, and you kind of admitted that with the opening of your title. The only difference is taking like the hero's journey, the chosen one, all of that stuff. These are all archetypes and tropes. And the thing that makes a story interesting is taking familial tropes and ideas and concepts and making them your own. Because like, I can tell a story about a chosen one that'll be different from the story you tell, Kevin, or different than the story you tell, Sean, even though it still has the chosen one narrative. Or even when you think about Buffy and Charmed, they're both about chosen ones. You have the charmed ones and the Slayer. Same idea and concept, and they have same themes, especially being about women, but it's very different. Mm-hmm. I would say Buffy is a little bit more darker. Charmed isn't. But it's still that, concept and narrative. So like, of course it's repetitive, but that doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah. So, and he liked it. It was kind of a fluffy essay. It was just blah, blah, blah. All right. Talk about the next one, Sean.
Cool. It really isn't all black and white. Color Coding, Post-Feminism, and Charmed. Written by James R. Nick. Whew, the notes I took on this. So the colors of the spells are used to establish gender roles and role reversals. So he's saying through specific special effects and costuming, Charmed expands our minds beyond certain gender norms, our traditional uses of magic. The first section is lending a hand, white lighters and dark lighters. So he points out that Leo's powers are white and blue in nature. Blue is seen as a masculine color. And in especially the first 3 seasons, the white lighters were seen as more masculine. We didn't really get a major female white lighter until Natalie in season 3. And then she died in the same episode. So, hey, fuck that bitch. He points out
anybody like Natalie, though? Like
nobody liked Natalie. No, she was the Professor Umbridge of Charmed.
And really, she's only the third white lighter we've ever seen. Before her, we saw Wyatt and we saw Sam. That's it. So...
Oh, when you said Wyatt, do you mean Leo? Leo Wyatt?
Sorry, Leo Wyatt. Leo and Sam.
I saved you there. It's his last name.
Thank you.
You're welcome. He points out that the sisters' powers don't have color, and it is... Okay, I don't like this. It's argued that active powers have color and passive powers don't. So active powers are masculine and feminine powers are not active. So the sisters are wanting active powers. No, James. This is not how this works.
Because as you were saying, I'm like, what?
Yeah, Phoebe's the only one with the passive power. The other 2 sisters have active powers. Yep.
Yeah. Remember, which proves that anyway. She's like, I got tired of being the only one in the family with a passive power. So I
Yep.
started taking some self-defense classes, which I've been putting on my new credit card.
Yeah, it's a major story element throughout every season. So I don't know where he came up with this.
Yeah.
And also, the only one that has colors with their powers is Paige.
Paige. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, speaking of Paige, he says once Paige was introduced, they had to start feminizing the White Lighters. So that's why they used the colors with her power, and they had to start like making sure that we knew White Lighters could also be female, I guess. So, Color Me Bad, the Charmed One's outer demons. So, Dark Lighters and demons typically wear black. That's pretty obvious. Instead of blue and white, Dark Lighters orb blue and black to show that they're evil. And instead of a golden healing touch, they have a red killing touch. Demons use... Okay, this was kind of interesting. I like the demon stuff. So demons use shimmering, or they use black smoke. So typically the lowest level shimmers, the higher levels are black smoke, which black is then a color. So we're starting to see how color powers have more power. He says the higher up demons have more spectacle when they use and special effects and colors. The source gets to travel by fire, which this is highly Christian Satan imagery. Also, it's more colorful. Other demons burn in fire while the source travels by it and can harness the fire, which shows how powerful he is. So naturally, when the source died, they had to have him die in a big way. So he was a nuclear explosion, or if you're W. Bush, a nuclear explosion. When Cole is the source, it's noted that he continued to shimmer because he wanted to make sure his power did not have a color so that he could identify with the witches more. And he also had to hide that he's the source, which I think is the bigger argument here. Let's see. Post-feminist coloring, Cupid and the Power of Pink. Leprechauns are all male in the show and they travel by rainbow. Cupids are a strange exception. Cupids wear a lot of red and white, but when Cupid uses his ring, it is a red light. When the ring is stolen and used by Drazi, it makes a green light. So red means go and green means stop, ? But it does also talk about how red could be seen as like the power of lust or love. So that would make sense. And green is more like envy or like gross. So it makes sense in that way. When Coop shows up, he's sexier and more suave. And he wears suits and bright colors. And his power is pink to evoke sexiness. He is meant to be more metro to bring him more into modern times. His power is also pink. I wrote that again. So he wears pink to identify with post-feminism. Pink has been reclaimed. It is to show us that Coop is a good man for supporting post-feminism. Oh, and then I wrote the last heading, it's been charming, but I didn't write any notes after that. So apparently it wasn't very interesting.
Yeah. I didn't like this one.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the analysis in this essay is like all circumstantial and the arguments were very weak in stating the obvious. So while there can be some rational correlation to what he's talking about, none of it was really that serious in the show. And there's no statements made that was like truly elaborating on anything that was meaningful. So yeah. I was like, whatever.
Also, like, part of the reason, like, the demons and everything like that, warlock, they started wearing black is because the budget got cut. So a lot of them, instead of looking like, demons and everything like that, like the earlier seasons, it was just, I'm wearing leather and I'm like, this person could just be into BDSM. Like, on a moment, I think it was Billy, she showed up in all black, and Phoebe was like, why are you dressed like a demon? I'm like, she just looks like she's going to a rave. Like, what do you mean, dressed like a demon? Is this how demons look? Like,
all of the demons in the later seasons were like sexy dungeon demons.
Yeah,
like...
it was just, I'm like, they're just into BDSM. They're not evil. They're into leather. They're going to a leather party.
Yeah. And I didn't like the fact that they acted like all White Lighters were male. To be fair, they do represent the patriarchy of the elders, so I get that, why you might think that, but it's like we haven't seen enough White Lighters to like gauge that.
Yeah. And the best of the White Lighters, arguably, was probably Sandra, even though she was shitty. She was at least kind of like
Well, she's an elder.
sympathetic to their plot. Oh yeah, she's an elder, not a white lighter,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, but in their fold. So
Yeah.
I do have quite a many canonical errors in this essay.
Canonical.
It says that white lighters first appear in Secrets and Guise. He even says that healing and orbing are seen for the first time. All are incorrect. Because we first see Leo use his powers for the first time, both healing and orbing, in Wicca Envy, in Season 1, Episode 10. He heals the Book of Shadows, and then he orbs out the door. We don't know what was happening. That was like a surprise, like, whoa! So I would argue that that would be the introduction of white lighters, even though they weren't officially named until Secrets and Guise, when he told Phoebe what he was. And it says that Phoebe witnessing Leo levitating to change the light bulb is a power that Leo loses in succeeding seasons. So after that episode, he's like, Leo never uses that power again. Wrong! Because it's, first of all, it's called hovering, not levitating. And it is a power he will still do occasionally, particularly in Season 4. I think he does it 3 times in 3 different episodes in Season 4. Now, Dark Letters. He implies that all Dark Letters have the ability to kill with the touch of death, like Alec did. But I always thought it was just Alec, because we never... Like, thematically, it would make sense that all Dark Letters could do that, because it would be like a nice opposite to the healing touch of White Lighters. I would have liked them to have that, but there is not another single example of a Dark Letter doing that ever again. If that was the case, it pisses me off that they never did it again. We've seen other demons, we've seen other people do it, but not Dark Letters.
Yeah, like you said, it would make sense if that, because if they are supposed to be the antithesis of white lighters and their exact opposite, white lighters have a healing touch, then dark lighters should have a killing touch.
Yeah. I like that. I like that they have, but I would have liked to seen it like shown more if that was the case. Okay. The author of this essay is guilty of one of my biggest pet peeves ever. He misspelled Shannon Doherty's name.
Uh-oh.
He
Did
put
he?
Shanon. Right. I'm like,
Shannon instead of Shannon.
Yeah. So I was mad. Like, no! Get it right. Like, sometimes I forgive it on the internet because of autocorrect and stuff, but I always make a point to like, no.
Cast a spell on them.
Yeah.
Now I have another way to bother you. I'm going to add that to every single X-Men show.
Oh, gosh. You're going to put that along with the Season 6 hospital doors.
And I'll talk about how great the Charmed reboot is. Every single one.
Sure, thanks. I have one final canonical error of this essay. He credited Bennett Guillory as the source, which is true. He did play the source. He played the early Season 4 source, the hooded one with the red hands. But then he mentioned the shaved head, white-skinned, deformed face source, which was played by Peter Woodward, not Bennett. So, there. That's it.
Okay. Not too bad.
No.
All right. There's no place like Charmed, Domesticity, the Uncanny, and Utopian Potential of the City by Marcus Reisenleitner. So I asked a question at the beginning of these notes. It's so weird that everything is gendered. Is that weird? Because in this one and the earlier one, and especially in this one, he talks about how the kitchen is feminine. Fine. That's like a trope. We've seen that a lot. But then he talks about how like the family room is male and this is that and this. I'm like, I don't see any penises in this room. Like, why are we talking about how they're male and female? It was so weird to me.
And it's interesting that every writer in this section of the book is a male writer, but they act like they're like trying to suck up to the feminist movement in a way. It's super strange.
Yeah, in weird ways.
Especially
Yeah.
considering, Grant, I didn't read what you're talking about, but like, 'cause
Yeah.
I didn't get that. But like, just based on what you're saying, especially when you think about it from the in canon universe of the show, the entire house was decorated first by Grams, at least when they were coming up, but then as they went along, it was decorated by the sisters. So like, what do you mean the living room is male? Like, it's like floral arrangements and stuff like clearly Piper decorated this. Like,
Right?
Yeah.
Like even the living room, like it looks like a grandma living room.
Yeah, it does.
Like it still looks like that probably stuck around. Everything stuck around from Grams.
Well, and he was talking about it less so about like the way the rooms are decorated, but I guess in like our thoughts, people are supposed to think of certain rooms as like more male or female. I don't know. I don't know how to say it. Not just in this house, but like in general.
Get in the kitchen, woman.
Yeah. I don't know. He started talking about like how Charmed is different because it takes on like the haunted house form, except for they're not being haunted. Like the house is kind of their sanctuary where they're safe, which is unlike other media. But then it went on to talk about how the boogeyman is in the basement, so it is kind of haunted house in a way still. So I didn't understand his point there. He did notice that they gain more power the more they know about their past. So Charm doesn't focus as much on technology because they're not getting strength through just random tech. They're getting strength from knowing their history, knowing what came before them, and learning from their ancestors, which I think that's a really good point and a really good lesson for everybody, because then maybe we wouldn't have the fucking president we have today. They also talked about how all the men in Charmed have like conventional jobs, like they're a policeman or they're a handyman. So that was an interesting point. That's kind of all the notes I took.
So he pretty much says that demon attacks are a disruption upon their domestic space. Their power is linked to their home, like the Book of Shadows, the Nexus, and being in the space together is all part of that. He says that the manor door closing every season signifies that the threat to their way of life has been successfully averted. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, and Charmed reworks the uncanny qualities of the haunted house motif, like you mentioned, into one more of female agency. So the home is not like this dirty, decrepit place, but this warm and cozy place. And the ghosts of the past are making a positive impact instead of terrorizing. So that was his argument there. He talks about chaos in the streets. So he talks about the city of San Francisco and how it represents female empowerment, while the patriarchal influence is the threat that looms underneath. So the underbelly, the criminality of San Francisco is the patriarchy.
I can see that. Most of the demons are male.
Yeah, most of them are male. So, yeah. He even said, like, when they talked about with Natalie, he's like, she's coded more male, too.
Mm-hmm.
So even though she's a woman, she's like acting like a man with her leisure suits. But he says that the sisters actively participate in maintaining a livable space with innocence and eliminating alienation, which I thought that was interesting. So they want to like be a part of their community, be a part of their city. He says that the sisters' ancient female knowledge is often portrayed as a more powerful alternative to the high-tech, male-coded digital age. So all of the fancy gadgetry and stuff is actually evil male stuff. And then he says that this is the most interesting part of the essay to me. The urban domesticated. So he says that female agency makes a harmonious community, and the minority characters are generally sympathetic, but they're not exoticized, which is nice, but they are also domesticated, which can be equally offensive. So it pretty much fails to show personal struggles of minority groups, and you're kind of like castrating minorities and making them fit into the white bread domestic space. So while they're like included, it does not extend beyond what they know. They make them like one of them instead of like acknowledging their personal struggles.
I'm trying to think, because I'm like, I don't really think it's about struggles, because sometimes like I make this comment about, you know, with my content, I'm like, sometimes like I don't want to just like, especially being black gay comic geek, I don't always want to talk about racism and all that. Sometimes I just want to be a fucking nerd. So like I don't necessarily think like they have to show the struggle or racism, but like for the most part, like I mentioned earlier, like you had the one main black character. I don't know why I use quotes, like he's pretend black. He's black. But you had the one main black character. But yeah, Daryl didn't really play that much, even though in some seasons he was like in the credits, but yet he barely played a role in the storyline. even like his wife, you saw his wife like a few times, even like just a pass on reference, like, oh, she knows who you guys are. It's like, what was that conversation? What was that conversation like? It was just like, yeah, you didn't really give Daryl much, or just other black witches and whatever. Like, it's the same criticism I have with Buffy. Like, Buffy don't have no black friends. So like,
Yeah.
but it's a thing that happened that was like 90s television. I mean, it still exists to this day, but
Yeah.
more so 90s, 2000s television.
They had, like, because even they talk about like Mark Chow in this section, and like we got to see them, but it was almost just like presented as only like surface level, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, and even what was the ghost that Piper fell in love with? She fell in love with an Asian person.
That's what I'm talking about.
Mark Chow.
That's what I'm talking about.
I was like,
Mark
but he
Chow,
was
yeah.
dead the first episode, introduced and gone the first time he was introduced.
Yeah.
And I would argue he's probably Piper's actual soulmate, even more than Leo.
Yeah.
I would argue.
Mhm.
I mean, their chemistry was insane. It was
Yes.
there. Yeah.
So I wish we got more of him before they decided to kill him off.
Makes me wonder if they like knew each other in their past life. You know, what's Mark Chow's past life?
True. We need that episode.
See? All right, so the final essay is Unreal Humor, the roles of comedy and fantasy in the first season of Charmed by Peter Rands. Charmed shows us a constant juxtaposition between social commentary and fantasy. The sisters want to be normal and be loved in a place where comedy and fantasy collide. He quotes the theme song incorrectly. I'll talk about that in canonical.
Yep.
He says, and this, you kind of touched about this earlier, about how Charmed isn't as serious as Buffy. He says that humor and pain are juxtaposed in Charmed, but Charmed never dwells on the pain, horror, evil, or darkness too long. Perky, lighthearted banter usually breaks apart our dread. So he says that, you know, Buffy fans take everything more seriously, but Charmed, you know, never does. Because it's like, oh no, we have to make you feel happy now. Charmed is about the sisters integrating themselves with the wider community whilst keeping their powers a secret. That dynamic brings in a lot of humor. He's pretty much saying everything that's funny in Charmed.
Yeah.
Like the sisterly bickering, that's funny. So is the fact that episode titles are references to things. So all the episode puns, that's funny. I'm like, okay, cool. Humor comes at Quake, where all beautiful people go. And Piper, who aspires to be a chef, but is always designated to manager. So her trials in the environment are funny. She's like, oh my gosh, you have to do all this work. Why has nobody listened to me? Piper's power, too, allows for a sort of interrupted slapstick comedy. Because, like, oh, I'm freezing you. Oh no, it's going to break. He talks about pickup line humor. I'm going to read the section of pickup line humor. This is the dream source where when the guys hit on Phoebe, he's like, are your parents terrorists? Because, baby, you're the bomb. Jim, ask her if it hurt when she fell. Excuse me? When you fell from heaven, did it hurt? Because I know an angel when I see one. I'm no angel, I'm a witch. But don't tell my sisters I told you. So he says that these kind of exchanges are like the comedy of manners and the comedy of confusion, where two guys believe that Phoebe is playing along with the scenario, while Phoebe is actually brushing them off with the literal truth. So like it's like, I get it.
I get it.
Quake is a place for the rich and famous, and the sisters aspire to fit in with them. So the dynamic between their wants and their feelings of exclusion is funny. We revel in Roger's comeuppance in the premiere, and Prue's drive to show her competency. At Buckland's, the comedy comes from the inability to separate their witchy lives from the demands of the workplace. So she's like, oh my gosh, all these things are coming in that I have to auction off, but there's a problem with them. There's all these innocents attached to it now. Great. Sucks being a witch. And then talks about the male and female dating relationship, all the misunderstanding that comes between the genders, like the way the powers are used in the love life, Piper freezing Leo during sex, and Phoebe getting premonitions about being asked out. Another instance of this is when Phoebe is judging Leo's sincere breakup speeches. So like when he's like, I have to break up with Piper, how do I tell her? And Leo's like saying all these things, and Phoebe is like, oh no, this is what that actually means to Piper. that's not gonna work. And then Leo's like, what? I'm being super sincere. I don't understand. So that's kind of funny. The irony that warlocks are intent on stealing their powers, as that can be a metaphor to their resistance to male dominion. So like warlocks want to steal their powers, but it's like, oh, but they're like patriarchal because they want to steal a woman's literal power. So I'm like, oh, isn't that funny?
No.
I would say in terms of like the tone,
Yeah.
it's not even like Buffy doesn't have humor or Buffy doesn't have jokes or moments of, self-referential humor or anything like that. But I would say that really, because Charm kind of had a similar tone-ish for the first 4 seasons. I would say season 5 is when it really started to get lighthearted.
Oh,
When they like
definitely.
really
That was a
delved
twist,
into the
a
more
shift.
magical, like started to introduce mermaids and
It
leprechauns.
was fantastical.
And, yeah, the more fantasy, fairy tale elements of Charm. But like, I would say the first 4 seasons are pretty dark. But I think where the difference between Charmed and Buffy is like, with Buffy, like they'll really also lean into like the PTSD element of the darkness, of the fact that you have these kids fighting demons and dealing with things like that. Like the whole idea of like when Buffy and Angel first had it, I guess spoilers for Buffy for people that maybe are just, because a lot of people are just getting into Buffy apparently. Same with Charm. But like when Buffy and Angel first had sex and Angel went evil,
Yeah.
and it was like
I
the
remember that
allegory
one.
of sleeping with the guy, sleeping with the guy and him, going evil. And like she had to deal with that basically throughout the entire season. And like the ramifications of that lasted even well past that season. Like even in season 7, she brought up the fact that she had to kill Angel and how that made an impact on her and things like that. But whereas Charm, it's like they don't really live in that as much. Like you think about the fact that Phoebe had to kill her husband, the Source, Cole. But then after that, it was just like, after that season was over, when he came back in season 5, it was just like, yeah, I'm over you, go away. And it's like, no, that still would be kind of traumatic for her. But it was just like, no, we're moving on. Like the story is.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
So,
Thank you. I charge $20.
it pretty much says that Charmed is a social commentary, and there you go. That's pretty much his whole argument.
So you really like this one?
We'll talk about our final thoughts in the end. But first, I have canonical errors in this one, too.
Canonical.
So the theme song is written, he quotes the theme song, How Soon Is Now, and it says, I am the sun and the air. But he put SUN and AIR, when it's actually SON and HEIR. So, yeah. And I know when I was a kid, I was confused by that too, but yeah, they're different sun and airs. I thought it was weird that he thought Something Wicked This Way or Something Wicca This Way Comes is a parody of the Something Wicked This Way Comes 1983 film. The Disney movie.
I mean, that's what I thought.
Yeah, well, that is fine. It's part of it, but because the movie is a movie of the book Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury, which he didn't even bring up. Furthermore, it's even from a quote of Macbeth. So it's sort of
Shakespeare.
There's all those other references. Shakespeare, yeah. Shakespeare in love. So yeah, so I just wish that he would have referenced the other things that it actually came first too. Oh, the biggest one. Here's another one of my pet peeves you can add to the list, Sean. You remember?
Okay.
He said Buckland. He kept saying Buckland. Once the full name was properly used, because you can use Buckland if you say Buckland Auction House. If you don't put all those words together, Buckland Auction House, it has to be Bucklands. You cannot cheat and say Buckland because that's not what they said. Bucklands.
I was going to say, what was wrong? I was like, I thought it was called Buckland.
So, yes. So if you look on the sign, it says Buckland Auction House. If you call it Buckland Auction House, that's okay. But everywhere else, if they say Bucklands, she's at Bucklands, we're going to Bucklands, they said Bucklands. And that's why it bothers me. So if you have to use it in the right context. And that's it.
You are a whole another level of charm nerd.
I've talked about it before. It's just things that keep coming up.
With that said, what power would you want to have? If you can only have one, you only have one.
Of the charmed powers?
No, just like out of
power?
out of all the powers shown in Charmed.
I would want orbing. I want to teleport,
I mean,
especially living in LA.
Orbin might be slower than other ones. Blinking's much
But it's
faster.
prettier.
I know it is pretty
prettier.
and sounds pretty. It's chimey. Ooh. I want hydrokinesis, like the sea hag, throw those balls of water at people.
Yeah, you do. balls of
Splish
balls or
splash.
something.
I'm
Don't
all
you
wet,
already
can I
do
come
that?
in? Yeah.
I would choose projection power.
Ah! Cheat! Okay, fine.
I win.
That's true. I didn't even think about that.
You can't change it. You can't change it.
Because projection is like every power. You can do like everything.
I know. That's why I said it. That's like when somebody asked me, like, what power would you want to have? Like, if you had to pick one power with like Marvel Comics, what do you want? I was like, I would choose magic. That's literally everything. Like, I can read minds. I can teleport. I can fly. Give me magic. I want like Scarlet Witch chaos magic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. You win.
I'm the Charmed expert now.
Well, I always think it's funny how like Phoebe's like, Billy, here's this power I never heard of before, projection. Don't know anybody who has it, even though your nephew's been doing projection the entire time.
Yep. Stupid Phoebe.
Yeah, well, Wyatt has projection power.
Yes, which is why I made a point of it in my Charmed musical. Listen to the Charmed musical.
But I always thought it was a huge, like, not writing problem, but like, to me, it was kind of stupid how so much more powerful Wyatt was compared to Chris. But then they're both supposed to be the children, like, and granted, I get the oldest is always supposed to be the most powerful, but even like from Prue to Piper, their power is not that big of a like gap. Like Wyatt can damn near, he's basically God. And all Chris can do, and even his telekinesis isn't even that strong. Like, it's basically Graham's level.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I always thought
Poor
that was
Chris.
granted. I like
Really.
that they had, like, Chris be jealous a little bit, like, of how powerful Wyatt was. But still, I was always like, it's kind of stupid. Like, he's the second child. He should be way more powerful.
Yeah.
I know. I bet you Melinda's probably going to be like even more powerful than him. He's like, what
I
the
was
hell?
thinking that.
Yeah. Like, I hate it. Stupid middle child syndrome. So yeah, that's these essays. What are our overall thoughts about them?
They're okay. These guy writers didn't bring it. Like, I feel like most of them have seen part of the show, but they don't know the show because a lot of their points didn't land home for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I did find fascinating points and analogies in all of them. There were some things that I could get, but a lot of them weren't necessary. They could have been a much shorter essay. So, I don't know. I do think that this is probably a more cohesive collection than the Totally Charmed group of essays overall. Because I think some of those ones were more successful, and I thought they were more fascinating. There's definitely more personality to those writings because the authors can talk what they want. But that also meant that some of them were painfully snide and grating too. We really hated some of those authors in the Totally Charmed book. So these ones, while I didn't always like them, I thought they were more even keeled. Maybe because they were from an academic standpoint. They're very matter of fact. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know which one I like more. But so then we have our tips for future white lighters.
Oh, we're really just messengers? Guides? Think of us as guardian angels for good witches.
Tips for future white lighters.
I was out being a force of good in the universe.
What's something we could have learned from this episode, any of these writings?
Don't be a man.
Don't be a man.
I'd say if you're gonna write about something, do your damn research. You sound like an idiot if you're gonna sit there and say something that's not even right. The other sisters don't have active powers. Shut up.
Right? And the whole colorless color thing, it pissed me off.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's none of that's even relevant to anything.
Mm-mm.
It's like Orbeon is a boy power because it's blue. Like, shut up. But my tip is just like entertainment in our media today. Well, it should have a degree of social commentary and be a mix of the familiar, relatable experiences balanced with a level of extraordinary. So, like, I think, you know, having some realism and some fantasy both grounds us and gives us a way to escape. And I think both of them are a recipe for success, to have them, like, perfectly balanced.
Boom.
So our final thing then is our P is for poll.
Piper. You mean it's just you and Prue, huh?
Phoebe? Phoebe, you there?
And a big hello to you too, Penny.
Come on, Patty. The rest is up to them.
Paige. My name is Paige. Another P, imagine that.
P is for poll. And my question is, what visually attracts you the most? Special effects, location and place like Hallowell Manor, props, or like facial expression on characters? I think all of them are important, but I guess which one is drawn to you the most? Or
When you first said it, what visually attracts you the most? I was going to say hot shirtless men.
Oh, okay. That's my cue.
I was waiting. I was like, I'm not going to stop you. Repeat the answers again.
Options: special effects, places, props, or a facial expression.
I would say for me personally, because I'm a big character person, I would say facial expression.
Yeah. It tells you a lot.
Yeah,
especially if you're good at acting.
I'd say facial expressions. Like, I have a few movies that I really like that are TV shows even that have like shitty graphics, but if there's good acting and facial expressions, I'm there. If it's a good story,
Yeah,
I'm there.
like one of the shows that I'm really loving right now is Severance. And a lot of the actors are like acting their bussies off with like, they're not even saying anything. It's just their eyes. And it's like their whole eye, like everything is telling a story with just the look on their face or like a certain smile that they do. And you could tell, like, without a word of dialogue, you're getting everything that you need to get. And sometimes I'm just like, how are they even doing that? Like,
yeah,
I need to know their technique.
Yeah, I feel like special effects is probably the most noticeable. It's the thing you can see first. But everything will fall flat if that acting isn't there.
Yeah, if it's great special effects but terrible acting, I still don't care. Like,
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the episode then. Cool. Anything else you want to plug? Where can we find you, Black Gay Comic Geek?
You can find me everywhere on the webs, on the interwebs, mostly YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Blue Sky, Facebook, but does anybody really use Facebook anymore? Instagram. Also, I just started a Discord. So Discord, Black Gay Comic Geek.
Awesome. Get with it.
Yeah.
Sean.
You can find me on Sean Perrette on basically all the same ones: Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads. You can also find our other podcast, Solving for X and X-Men Task Podcast, on all those things I just said, plus YouTube. We started our own YouTube channel, and we just finished up season 2 of X-Men Evolution, which Kevin has been trying to make me like, and it's working.
Yeah, I told you. Season 1 is rough. I know season 1 is rough. We need to get Michael on that show as a guest at some point. Yeah.
I'm down.
Yeah.
I love X-Men.
I know you do. You love all that stuff. So many fun stuff. All your little videos I enjoy.
Speaking of a show that injects entertainment and social commentary.
Exactly. The socialist commentary is this of all. Anyway, I just had a stroke. It's fine. You can find this podcast at Words of the Witches, all the places, YouTube, Instagram, Blue Sky, Facebook. Yeah, email us at wordsofwitchespod@gmail.com if you want to talk stuff. Oh, you can find me at KGZ87 too on Instagram if you want to follow my personality and see my titties and stuff. It's fine.
but not those bold pictures. They take those down.
They keep flagging them. It's like rude. But this is it. All of the books this season, Sean, we did it.
Yay!
So next week will be our retrospective, and we will finally rank every publication this season using our wonderful comic rating system that I came up with last year, or last comic season. So we'll be using that for these books now that we have them all done. So until then, spell worders, we'll see you soon. Your destiny still